The 15th of March, 1939, Czechoslovakia. German troops roll through the streets of Prague under a grey, cold sky. There is no battle, no official resistance. Just a heavy silence, broken only by the sound of tanks and marching boots. The once proud Republic of Czechoslovakia lies broken. Only yesterday, Slovak separatists declared the Slovak state a fragile new entity that exists only under the watchful eye of Berlin. What remains of the country is now occupied, its sovereignty erased. Tomorrow, the Nazis will officially proclaim the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, a polite name for military occupation and total control. Just 6 months earlier, Czechoslovakia had hoped to stand against Hitler. Its well-trained army, its network of border fortifications, and its belief in Western allies gave it confidence. But the Munich Agreement shattered that faith. Betrayed by France and Britain, abandoned to its fate, the Republic was carved up and left bleeding. Now the German army marches in, not as invaders in battle, but as victors collecting a prize. People whisper of arrests, of disappearances. The Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, is already active, targeting politicians, union leaders, and Jews. Men in SS uniforms sneer in the streets. Fear becomes a constant companion, but not everyone is afraid. In most of the German-speaking regions, there are cheers. Flags of the Reich wave from windows. For many Germans, this is the day they have long awaited. After 2 decades inside a Czechoslovakian state they never accepted, they now feel redeemed, joined into the German Reich at last. Among them stands one man in quiet triumph. For years, he has fought against the very idea of a Czechoslovak state. He called for its dissolution, agitated for unification with Germany, and now sees his work fulfilled. He watches the arrival of German troops not with fear, but with pride. For him, this is not an invasion. It is a reward. His moment. His name is Hans Krebs. Hans Krebs was born on the 26th of April, 1888, in the old Moravian town of Iglau, today's Czech Jihlava, then part of Austria-Hungary. His father kept a cloth shop and a small inn, and hoped the boy would follow a path of quiet urban trade. The outbreak of the First World War swept Krebs into uniform. He volunteered for the Habsburg Imperial Army in August 1914 and fought in South Tyrol. He was promoted to lieutenant in 1916, an equivalent to second lieutenant. Krebs was decorated several times, and in December of the same year he was declared unfit for further frontline service. He returned with the iron pride of a generation that believed sacrifice would buy a better future. Instead, he found at the end of the war that the empire was gone, replaced in 1918 by the newly founded and democratic Czechoslovak Republic. 50% of the Czechoslovak population consisted of Czechs. Germans and Slovaks accounted for 22% and 16% respectively. For Czechoslovak politicians, the new state crowned their quest for self-determination, but for many ethnic Germans, including Hans Krebs, the map looked like a broken promise. German-speaking districts in a new established country, called the Sudetenland, now stood inside a Slavic-run parliament. Some German deputies dreamed of joining the tiny rump of German Austria. Others spoke of Swiss-style cantons. Most, however, settled into practical opposition under Prague's dome. Part of the Germans cooperated with the Czechoslovak state. Krebs chose to be loud in his opposition to the Democratic Republic. He helped weld scattered nationalist cells into the German National Socialist Workers' Party, the DNSAP, became one of its leaders in 1918, and steered its press service, the National Sozialistische Korrespondenz. From the industrial streets of Aussig, today's Ústí nad Labem in the Czech Republic, he sent sharp editorials that warned readers of Czech domination and promised a social revival under the old imperial colors, but in a much more radical way, as it had been in the past. The Czechoslovak Republic was one of few democracies in Central Europe during the interwar period and allowed free elections. Krebs proved to be an able campaigner. In 1925, He entered the Czechoslovak National Assembly and also kept his seat after the 1929 elections. Inside the chamber, he spoke German with aggression. Outside, he organized the paramilitary Volkssport units and demanded autonomy for 3 million Germans in Czechoslovakia. He was also working on his contacts across the Czechoslovak-German border, meeting a rising agitator in Munich called Adolf Hitler. While Prague struggled with language laws and the shock of the World Depression, Krebs' rhetoric sharpened. Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party came into power in Germany in January 1933. The same year, in an attempt to defend a democratic country from attacks by German radical nationalists, the Czechoslovak parliament lifted Krebs' immunity. Police arrested him and sent him to Prague's Pankrác prison. But national tension ran so high that he was soon freed on a heavy bail of 200,000 Czechoslovak crowns in July 1933. A few months later, in October 1933, the democratic government finally banned the DNSAP, which was slowly becoming more and more anti-democratic and pro-Nazi. Krebs decided to go into exile. On the 2nd of October 1933, he, his wife, and his son slipped over the borders into Nazi Germany. From exile, he threw words back at the Czechoslovak state, denouncing it as an artificial state formation that had no right to exist, a rhetoric identical to that of Adolf Hitler. Berlin welcomed the energetic refugee. Krebs joined the Nazi Party at once, and party archivists post-dated his membership to 1925 in appreciation of his work against Czechoslovakia in previous years, and handed him party number 86. He found a job as a press advisor in the Reich Interior Ministry, and in March 1936 entered the Reichstag, the German parliament, as a representative of the Nazi Party for the Berlin East constituency. Propaganda valued his Sudeten origin and used his story as evidence of the ill treatment of the Germans in Czechoslovakia. These stories were false, but many, especially in the West, started to believe it under pressure of the German propaganda machine during the appeasement time. When Hitler pushed the Sudeten crisis in 1938 and successfully obtained the border regions from Czechoslovakia, Krebs received the powerful post of acting Regierungspräsident, the district president in Aussig, today Ústí nad Labem in the Czech Republic. On the 1st of April 1939, 2 weeks after the full occupation of the Czech lands and the creation of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, he assumed permanent office. He was in this position until the end of the war. That same year, he reached the rank of Gauleiter, the regional Nazi party leader, and in 1940, SS-Brigadeführer, a rank equivalent to brigadier general in the US Army. Uniform, a limousine, and local command were the reward for years of agitation for the Nazi cause. The Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, proclaimed on the 16th of March 1939, looked on paper like an autonomous entity. In reality, it bowed to Berlin's racial and economic plans. German was the first language on every sign. Czech ministries only issued decrees in harmony with the political, military, and economic needs of Nazi Germany. From his office, Krebs enforced these needs with the energy of the radical Nazis. On the 9th and 10th of November 1938, during the Kristallnacht pogroms, Nazi leaders unleashed a series of violent riots against the Jewish population in Germany and recently incorporated territories. 91 Jews were murdered, and the rioters destroyed hundreds of synagogues and Jewish institutions throughout Germany, Austria, and the Sudetenland. The synagogue in Aussig burned as well. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939 when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. After 1941, Jews were rounded up, first into local collection points, later onto trains bound for the nearby fortress of Theresienstadt, and from there to extermination camps further east. In Aussig, Krebs behaved as if he was a king and supervised the arrests of Czech patriots, trade union men, and also priests. He championed the twin policy of carrot and stick, higher bread rations for obedient citizens, strict quotas, forced labor and violence for those who remained loyal to the Czechoslovak Republic, and in opposition to the occupiers. Every week, new decrees flowed from the Reich Protector's seat in the Prague castle and from Gau offices like Krebs's, identity cards in 2 languages, compulsory workbooks, curfews, bans of using radios, and so on. Behind the legal ink stood prisons, concentration camps, and execution sites. Yet the society he tried to master did not stand still. Czechoslovak workers slowed machines, and sabotage carried the whispered code: work slowly. Exiled leaders of Free Czechoslovakia in London sent agents by parachute. Village teachers hid them, some betrayed them. When Reinhard Heydrich, the ruthless acting Reich protector, took command in September 1941, repression hardened. Heydrich's assassination in May of the following year brought martial law and mass executions. Krebs, inside the German power pyramid, applauded the crushing of resistance, but the terror only deepened the gulf between occupier and occupied. Meanwhile, the wider war rolled back the Nazi tide. After battles at Stalingrad and Kursk, rumors of defeat reached factory floors. On the 19th of March 1945, Hitler issued the Nero Decree to destroy all useful assets before retreat. In the following few weeks, German columns of soldiers, Volkssturm militia, and refugee families clogged Bohemian roads, fleeing the Red Army. Krebs stayed in Aussig until the Reich structure collapsed. Czechoslovak resistance fighters rose in the May uprising, and by the 8th of May 1945, the Protectorate vanished. Krebs, stripped of authority, tried to hide, but was captured and once again sent to the Pankrác prison in Prague. There he stood before a Czechoslovak People's Court, together with other collaborators of the Nazi regime. The once again rebuilt Czechoslovak Republic demanded justice. During the trial, Krebs delivered a long, dramatic speech. He spoke in formal Czech, a tongue he had once dismissed, and evoked a full 1,000 years of common, difficult, yet great history. 3 million Germans, he admitted, were now leaving Czechoslovakia in the vast post-war expulsion that touched the whole of Central Europe. He pleaded that he had fought for his nation in good faith and lamented that history had chosen another path. Yet the facts were plain. He had helped dismantle the Czechoslovak Republic, welcomed the Nazi army, administered persecution, and stood high in the SS hierarchy. The People's Court in Prague found him guilty of high treason and complicity in the breakup of Czechoslovakia in 1939. On the 15th of February 1947, at 3:08 p.m., the 58-year-old Hans Krebs was hanged in Prague's Pankrác prison. His final words were, "Long live my German nation." Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.